My son Miles was a 17-year-old man who was bigger than me and carried himself with such poise that I couldn't help but admire him. I was surprised when he told me to rent a trailer and go to the woods for a week. He told me with a smile that reminded me of the boyish charm he used to try to talk his way out of trouble. "It's just you and me. Some snowy tracks, a warm fire, and peace." I had to say yes. After a long holiday season, the thought of a relaxing week in the mountains was too good to pass up. Warm clothes, board games, and a few books for quiet nights were all we brought with us. Miles did most of the planning. He rented the trailer, planned the route, and even put together a mix for the trip. The drive was long, but the trees along the road, which were covered in frost, looked like pictures on a postcard. As soon as we got to a small, remote trailer park tucked into a snowy valley, I felt incredibly calm. It was beautiful. It was just us, the mountains, and the sound of a fire. As the days went by, our bond grew in ways we didn't expect. In the morning, we went hiking through the quiet woods. For lunch, we ate with hot cocoa, and in the nights, we talked with real people around the campfire. Things that seemed dull at home went over very easily now. He told them about his hopes, fears, and even parts of his life that he had kept secret until now. What I thought about him changed, not just as the boy I had raised, but also as the man he was turning into. I liked how he carried himself with quiet strength and confidence. It hit me how little I had relied on him since his dad and I split up. After a very tiring walk one evening, we came back to the trailer with our cheeks red from the cold. Miles demanded that dinner be made, a simple pasta meal that tasted great. As we ate under the soft light of an electric lamp, I noticed how he filled the room without even trying. I used a childhood nickname I had almost forgotten to say. "Thanks for this, Ollie." It was a great plan. When his blue eyes met mine, the air felt charged for a moment. He said in a soft voice, "Mom, it's nice just to be with you. We seem to have forgotten how to really talk to each other because we've been so busy with life." What he said touched me. He was right. Because of school, work, and other daily tasks, real times of connection had become hard to come by. There was a fire outside that night, and the wind howled, but we were quiet. Miles read while I looked out the window and watched the snow fall slowly to the ground. I felt very thankful for him, for the man he was turning into, and for all the work he did to make this trip possible. I hadn't seen that much of that side of him before, but it showed how much he cared about our relationship. There was an unspoken magic in the mountains that made every moment feel like a scene from a movie. Miles seemed set on making the week one to remember. After our deep talk, I woke up to the smell of coffee, which made me feel welcome. When I opened my eyes, Miles was standing in the doorway of the small resting area with a hot mug in his hand and a smile on his face. "Good morning, sleepyhead," he joked. "I thought you should have breakfast in bed because you were such a great hike partner." I laughed and moved the soft blanket around me. "What? I'm now the best person to go hiking with? I think I heard you moaning the whole last mile yesterday." He laughed and gave me the mug. "That was an idea to keep us going and make you laugh. This is how selfless I am." I felt so grateful because the coffee was just right, just the way I liked it. Outside it snowed, and inside the trailer it was so quiet that it felt like the rest of the world had disappeared, leaving us alone. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Thank you. This is really nice." He gave a shrug and didn't turn his head away. "Mom, you deserve it. You help everyone a lot. Now, it's your turn to be looked after." I thought about what he said as we spent the morning in the warmth of the trailer. Miles later suggested that we check out another nearby track. The cold winter air made us bundle up tight, and we set off. The only sound in the quiet forest was the sound of our boots cracking on the snow. The walk was wonderful. There were long periods of silence broken up by his jokes and playful comments. As I joked about being so warm that I could hardly move, he said that the frost on my hat made me look like a figure from a survival movie. I hit him with my swatter as a joke, and his laughter could be heard in the woods. But as night fell, the day went in a strange direction. As we walked back to the trailer on a particularly icy part of the trail, my foot suddenly slipped and I fell hard on my side. A sharp pain went up my leg. Mom. Miles came over right away and helped me sit up. His hands were steady and gentle. Are you okay? He asked with worry in his voice. What hurts? My leg. I winced and tried to move it, but the pain was sharp and wouldn't go away. I believe I bent it. He took me in his arms right away, as if I didn't weigh anything. That's right. Don't even think about walking on it, he told me. I said weakly, Oliver, I'm fine. He cut me off with a soft but firm voice. No arguments. I won't let you make things worse, because you're already not okay. He then added with a grin, Besides, I've been working out just for times like this. Even though it hurt, his joke made me laugh. I felt safe in a way I hadn't in years because of how warm he was against the cold air and how steadily he held me. Miles carefully put me on the small couch in the trailer after he got back. He supported my leg with a pillow and wrapped it in an ice pack. He knelt next to me and said, We'll go home tomorrow, but you're not going anywhere tonight. Just ask for what you need. Even though I was getting tired by the end of the night, the dull pain in my leg kept me up. At some point during the night, I woke up shaking because it was very cold outside, even though the trailer was warm. My head hurt, and I had a terrible discovery. I had a fever. Oliver. I called out so softly that you could barely hear me. He was right next to me in an instant, his face filled with worry. Mom, what's wrong? He asked as he ran his hand across my forehead. You're getting hot and cold at the same time. Wait a minute. He climbed into bed next to me, wrapped his arms around me, and pulled the covers tight over both of us before I could say anything. You need to get warm. His voice was calm and reassuring. I put my head on his chest and listened to the steady beat of his heart. The heat from his body warmed me and took away my chills. His hand moved slowly and gently around my back, making me feel better. Thank you, I murmured, my voice sleepy. Always, he answered quietly, gently brushing my hair aside like he did when I was younger. I'll always take care of you. I didn't expect to feel so emotionally close to him in the middle of the night, wrapped in his warmth. Our connection deepened in a quiet, meaningful way I couldn't quite explain. I let myself fully lean into being cared for the first time in years, trusting that I wasn't alone. As I fell asleep, I couldn't help but think about how much this trip had changed the way I see things, not just Oliver, but also our bond. I woke up the next morning to the faint smell of something tasty cooking. Even though my leg hurt, the warmth of the blankets and the pleasant smell made it easier to deal with. I slowly stood up and winced when I felt the movement. Miles was standing at the small kitchen counter with his back to me and humming softly while cooking. I called out in the morning, though my voice was still a little weak. When he turned around, a big smile lit up his face. Look up, you sleepyhead. Breakfast is almost ready. How do you feel today? I'm sore, but not as bad as last night. He nodded, though a hint of worry stayed on his brow. I made toast and eggs. I'll bring you a plate, but we're going to the hospital afterward. No arguments, I said with a soft laugh. His protective tone touched me. That sounds like a terrible idea, I joked. True to his word, he gave me a plate and insisted on helping with everything. His attention warmed something deep inside me, even as he held the plate steady while I ate. And as I watched him clean up afterward, I felt a quiet affection I couldn't quite describe. I looked into his eyes as he turned to face me and said, Thank you. Why? He asked, his smile softening. Thanks for being you and for taking such good care of me. He looked at me, eyes locked for a moment, then gave a small nod, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. Always, Mom. The drive down the mountain went smoothly, and the snow-covered scenery was just as beautiful as ever. Miles kept looking at me to make sure I was okay. As he adjusted the heater, his hand would sometimes brush mine. He even skipped songs on the playlist that he thought might bother me. I was worn out by the time we got to the hospital. Miles helped me get out of the car and held my hand as we walked inside. While the doctors examined my leg, his hand rested gently on my shoulder. It's just a bad strain, the kind doctor said as he secured a tight brace on my leg. Rest for a few days and you'll be fine. I couldn't help but laugh when Miles sighed with visible relief. You look happier than I do, I teased. Someone needs to worry about you, he said with a sly grin. When we finally got home, I was so glad to return to somewhere familiar. Miles brought me blankets, tea, and even the remote to help me get comfortable on the couch before heading to the kitchen. You don't have to do everything, I told him. He peeked his head around the corner and smiled. You deserve to be spoiled, he replied. Let me take care of you for a change. And he truly did. He didn't let me lift a finger the next few days. He cleaned up, made meals, and sat beside me during my favorite shows. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this cared for, and I hadn't realized just how much I missed it. A few nights later, though, things really changed. We were sitting on the couch, and the TV's soft light cast shadows all over the room. Miles was sitting next to me, with his arm casually resting along the back of the couch. My leg was propped up on a pillow. There was a kind of silence between us that only comes when two people feel completely at ease. Then he spoke, catching me off guard. Mom, he said in a tone that was surprisingly serious. I need to tell you something. The weight in his voice made my heart skip a beat. What is it? I asked, suddenly worried. He paused, eyes lowered, looking at his hands. I've been thinking a lot lately about how different things feel between us. I held my breath, unsure of where he was going with this. Not the same way? I asked gently. He leaned forward, his expression open and vulnerable. I care about you so much, he said slowly, not just as my mom, but as someone I deeply admire and respect. You've been my anchor, my constant. I don't say it enough, but I love you for who you are. His voice softened further. You're one of the most important people in my life. And sometimes, I just wish I could spend every day with you, without the world pulling us in different directions. His honesty created a strange, heavy silence. It wasn't inappropriate, but it felt emotionally overwhelming. I could feel how deeply he meant it, and how hard it was for him to say. Oliver, I began, my voice shaking slightly. I didn't know what to say. For days, he had cared for me so tenderly, and it stirred emotions I hadn't allowed myself to name: love, gratitude, comfort, and vulnerability. It's okay, he said quickly, sensing my hesitation. A shy, almost embarrassed smile appeared on his face. You don't have to say anything. I just couldn't hold it in anymore. There were tears forming in the corners of my eyes. I reached out and gently held his hand. You mean so much to me too, I told him. What we have is special, and I'll always cherish it. He squeezed my hand in response, searching my eyes for something, maybe reassurance, maybe understanding. In that moment, one thing became clear. Whatever we were navigating, we were doing it together. His words had changed something. His gaze lingered like snowfall, soft, surprising, and deeply felt. I leaned in and hugged him tightly, not wanting the moment to break. His embrace was strong, grounding me. For a while, nothing else mattered, not the pain, not the questions, just the comfort of connection. Oliver, you're everything to me, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I need you to know that. He pulled me in a little closer. I was afraid to tell you, but now that I have, I feel like I can finally breathe. I leaned back slightly, brushing a hand through his hair like I had when he was younger. But now, it felt different. Tender, yes, but also respectful of the maturity he'd grown into. You're brave, I said softly. I'm proud of you, for speaking your truth. I'm here. Always. His smile was small but genuine, warmed by my words. We stayed like that for a few quiet moments, held in one another's arms. Then I shifted slightly, wincing from the pain in my leg. Let me help, he said immediately. He supported me carefully and repositioned the pillow under my leg. Then, without hesitation, he gently massaged the muscle around the sore area, being extra careful not to touch the injury directly. Is this okay? He asked softly. I nodded. It actually feels good. Thank you. His touch was gentle, focused, and purely caring. He looked at me like this small act of comfort meant everything to him. I reached out and touched his cheek in return. You've been amazing, Oliver, I said, my voice low and sincere. I don't know what I did to deserve you. He paused and looked into my eyes. It's not about deserving anything. You've always been there for me. I just want to do the same for you. There was a quiet understanding between us that didn't need words. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to enjoy his presence, the rhythm of his hand easing the tension in my leg. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. "Would you like me to stay with you tonight?" he asked after a long pause. His voice was calm, unsure. I gave a soft nod. "That would be nice." He smiled gently. As he adjusted the blankets around me and turned off the TV, the room grew dim. Only the lamp on the side table cast a soft, amber glow. He sat next to me and reached under the blanket to hold my hand. I rested my head against his shoulder. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was filled with a depth of emotion neither of us could quite describe. I closed my eyes and let the quiet wrap around us. Over the next few days, there was a shift between us, subtle but noticeable. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was just there. A quiet closeness in everything we did together. It was the way his hand lingered a little longer when helping me to the kitchen, or how his eyes softened when he looked at me, not just with pride, but with care and emotional depth. As the evenings passed, we spent more time together on the couch. The conversation slowed, replaced by peaceful silence, the kind that only exists between people who feel safe in each other's presence. One night, while we sat in that silence, Miles leaned in and rested his head lightly against mine. It caught me off guard. "Do you ever imagine what life would be like if it were just us in a world?" he asked in a voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him slowly, my heart thudding. "What do you mean?" I asked gently. His fingers played with the edge of the blanket, his expression contemplative. "No obligations. No distractions. Just us. Taking care of each other." His words stirred something complicated in me, a flood of emotions I couldn't immediately name. "That sounds peaceful," I said honestly. "But life isn't always that simple, Oliver. You know that." "I do," he replied with a quiet nod, meeting my gaze. "I just wish it could be sometimes." I didn't know how to respond, so I reached over and intertwined my fingers with his. "Whatever happens," I said softly, "we'll face it together." When he looked at me, I felt something stir, something deep, unfamiliar. Not wrong, but full of weight. A kind of love that had grown stronger through shared experiences, care, and trust. "I don't think I've ever felt this kind of connection before," he said quietly. His voice was steady, sincere. It wasn't a confession, but a truth said out loud. I felt my heart grow heavy with emotion. I reached over and pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly. He returned the embrace, holding me close as if afraid to let go of the moment. "I love you too, Oliver," I whispered. "So deeply. And I always will." The words weren't romantic. They were filled with gratitude, bond, and something more profound than either of us had words for. A love built not on roles, but on being there for each other, fully, honestly. He rested his forehead against mine for a moment. I was scared to say anything, but I'm glad I did. I pulled back slightly, brushing his hair gently like I used to when he was younger. "You're brave," I whispered. "And I'm proud of you." He smiled, quietly, as if the storm inside him had passed. For a few more moments, we stayed like that, close, calm, connected. Then I moved slightly, wincing as pain shot through my leg again. "Let me help," he said quickly. With care, he adjusted the pillow beneath my leg and wrapped a soft blanket around it. Then, with gentle hands, he checked the swelling and made sure I was comfortable. "Is that okay?" he asked. I smiled. "It's perfect. Thank you." His touch was thoughtful, his presence grounding. The warmth I felt wasn't confusing anymore. It was comforting. It reminded me that love comes in many forms, and this one, while intense, was rooted in something strong and pure, mutual care. He sat beside me again, and for the rest of the night, we said nothing more. We didn't need to. That silence between us said everything.